All right. Good morning, New Mexico and folks from around the world joining us on Cafecito con Colón. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning, the 21st day of July. 10 days left and then we hit August. That's my anniversary month, actually. So I got to get ready for that. And 3 weeks from yesterday, I think we're reaching 24 years while Lily's been putting up with me. Good morning, Sean Cardinalli.
Good morning, Brian.
Great to see you this morning.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Are you kidding? My pleasure. I think I look dark. I'm going to get washed out. Watch this.
Yeah, there you go.
A little better?
That's a little better. A little more contrast.
You would think I'd have the lighting perfect after doing this about 120 times so far.
Yep.
All right. It's 9:01 on this beautiful Tuesday morning. We are ready to go. Let's see here. Sean, I'm going to post up some links and we're going to get started and then I'll bring you for a great conversation. Does that sound all right?
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you. All right. KRQE has this great landing page with a bunch of resources, folks. I'm going to put that up. Good morning, Don Ernesto Martinez. Good to see you. Dr. Lawrence Roybal. We're grateful for you, my friend. D. Dolores Carrion. Welcome to Cafecito con Colón. It is indeed a glorious day. Missing you, Dr. Roybal, at all the events that we normally go to together. But during this COVID-19 pandemic, at least I get to see you every day on Cafecito con Colón. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. Good morning, Mr. Patrick Barrett. Good to see you this morning. And the Honorable Nancy Marie Burse. Good to see you, our fine county treasurer here in the beautiful Bernalillo Condado, Bernalillo County. Great to see you this morning, Nancy. We've been missing you. Good morning there, Clarence L. Smith. Thanks for joining us this last weekend on Cafecito con Colón. It was great to have you on here on our visit for all our friends here on Cafecito. Okay, let me get up some quick links here. This is a great piece here on KOB about the galleries there in Santa Fe, really kind of doing that, what we call, what we say? Oh, how do you spell pandemic? P-I-V-O-T, pivot. And that's what the gallery owners are doing there in Santa Fe on Canyon Road, famous Canyon Road. Check that out. And they're doing lots of virtual presentations there. So check that out. Let's see here on NPR this morning. Oh, this is an interesting story here on my Optimist Daily. You know, they're making clothing out of spoiled milk now. Did you know that, Sean?
I didn't know that. No.
There you have it. There you have it. I hope those shirts don't smell bad. But here is a story on my Optimist Daily from this morning about making shirts and clothing out of spoiled milk. How is that for a random article that you probably would not see if you weren't on Cafecito con Colón today?
Right,
here's the great NPR story where they are going to honor Dr. Fauci by allowing him to throw out the first pitch there at the Washington Nationals season opener. He's a big Nats fan. And so they are letting him throw out the first pitch. Alex Trebek is releasing his book, telling his story about his journey. He announced long ago that he had stage 4 prostate cancer, and he also announced he was going to beat it with his positive mental attitude, with his treatment, and with prayers from around the globe. And he has done that. I mean, can you believe it? I mean, he's been on that show for 36 years.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, right? He announced last March, so he's already survived a year and a half almost. My goodness.
Yeah. And it didn't seem, I don't know what the diagnosis seemed pretty severe back then. So I'm glad.
Stage 4.
Diagnosis rather. So I'm glad that he's fighting.
Absolutely. That was stage 4. You just don't hear people surviving stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Good morning, Dr. Joe McCaffrey. Good morning, Anik. Hey, Anik, congratulations on your new job. We'll look forward to you sharing a picture of your new office with us. Good to see you, Adrian Chavez. Lobo Protective Services. Call Adrian if you need protective services, security. He is a force of nature in the film sector. So I knew he'd be on this morning to hear from another force in the film industry, Sean Cardinalli. And so Adrian, thank you for joining us this morning. Good to see you. Here's a great story in the Santa Fe New Mexican highlighting the 5 individuals who put in to fill the very big shoes of Representative Linda Trujillo, who is stepping down from her seat in the New Mexico House of Representatives. And I just read today in the Albuquerque Journal that Representative Tim Lewis out of Rio Rancho. So Mom, if you're tuned in there, Ophelia, if you're tuned in, Representative Lewis is going to stand down. So says the Albuquerque Journal. He has decided not to seek re-election. And so we'll see who gets to replace him on the ballot. Oh, great story here today. And let's see if I pulled the link. I did. So we started on this journey about 15 years ago to try and get pre-K education funding passed in New Mexico. We had lots of studies that said that this was going to impact graduation rates, success rates, and change the trajectory for families around New Mexico. And indeed, at least the initial data supports that there are gains in those investments that we made in pre-K education. Graduation rates, 80%, 80% from that cohort. So that's very, very cool. Hopefully you'll take some time to check out that story. But for all you great early childhood development advocates, some good news coming at us on the front page of the Albuquerque Journal. And the other cool story, Sean, I don't know if you're a Cocina Azul fan, but I am.
Oh, I love it. I love the original one on Mountain there.
That's the best.
Yeah.
He's got a beautiful location here on Paseo, but Frankie and the family, Junior and the team, they've got a beautiful restaurant on Paseo, but I still tell you, the one on Mountain and 12th is the best.
I agree.
So here's the deal. Lay's potato chips, they selected only 6, was it 6? I don't remember, but a handful of flavors to make from local flavors and tastes. And they came out with the Lay's chili relleno flavor from Cocina Azul. So congratulations, Frankie. We're so proud to have you on the national stage. Oh, look, they put a picture of Junior in here. Here's Frank Barella Jr. He's holding 2 bags of chili relleno flavored chips. And the inspired chips are going to be hitting the stores on July 27th. So we've got next Monday to look forward to for those chips coming out. Other flavors include kettle cooked New York style pizza, inspired by Grimaldi's out of New York City, Nashville hot chicken, inspired out of Party Fowl, Nashville, Tennessee, Philly cheesesteak, inspired by, of course, Gino's Steaks there in Philadelphia, and Carnitas street taco inspired by El Torrito, the little bull out of Los Angeles. That's it. So it's like 5. So
they made it.
That's cool. That's pretty cool. So get a load of this, then I'll move on. Although there's no direct payment to Cocina Azul or the other restaurants involved, Lay's created the Lay's Gratitude Fund. And everybody knows that I live a life of gratitude and service. So I like that. The Lay's Gratitude Fund gave each restaurant a $25,000 donation to put toward the various relief efforts that will help them recover from the impact of the pandemic, according to the company release. So that is awesome. Way to go, Frankie and Frankie Jr. of Cocina Azul. So there's that story that I wanted to highlight. We got a golf clap out of Sirius, and then Latanya Mar y Ortega, welcome. Sombrero Man, there you go. Good to see you this morning.
Solito.
Here with us. Everybody came out to see Sean. A few dozen people here.
The show's now an institution, man.
Hey, Maybe I appreciate that. I'm loving doing this show every day. I love all my Cafecito friends. Thank you to everybody for joining me, and thank you for all the support you've shown me as I've tried to know better so that I could be better and do better. And 120 or so episodes of Cafecito con Colon, and about 60 of those have been amplifying Black voices. And we're going to do that again today with my friend Sean, who has really got a phenomenal perspective that he brings to the table that is unlike any we've had before on Cafecito con Colon. So Nancy Burr says she's going to eat potato chips all next week. I love that. Let's see, who else do we have with us this morning before I focus in on Sean Cardinalli? Oh, you know what? Good to see you this morning, Christina Chavarria, coming in from the north. We've got Nancy Cooper. Good to see you this morning. Appreciate you always joining me. Denise Lee, thanks for being a stalwart guest on Cafecito con Colon. And congratulations on Sophia's success and continued excellence. Talk about Black excellence. It's been a busy week and you're going to do great. Let's see. Okay, Maria Baca. Maria Baca's back and she's beautiful. Maria, I hope your show is going great. I'm not using your sangre cup today. Tu sangre es tu sangre. Make sure you check out Maria Baca's daily show for her Maria en la Cocina. She does a great job doing real-time recipes out of Tu Sangre es Tu Sangre, a great New Mexico cookbook. Maria, feel free to post a link to that on here. She's got a great YouTube channel. And Maria's she's better at talking and engaging. I mean, she doesn't even have any guests on, and she goes for like an hour, and you can just sit and listen to her talk about her passion, which is cooking, and about her family and about our community. She's amazing. I love her. And then my Mero Veterano, give my love to our great hero, retired Senior Master Sergeant Jesse J. Baca. Thank you for your service, Jesse. I love you very much. Shannon, glad you're with us this morning. And she's so excited, man. Look at that. What? Sean Cardinalli's on deck? Oh my goodness. Good morning to everybody. So you got a fan there in Shannon and Lynn Southard, glad to have you this morning. Jason Anjadi, one of New Mexico's best artists. So look, I didn't put up all my sites because I just got too busy talking. So I'm gonna move on here, folks. Hopefully this site links up. This is from Yad Vashem, which is of course the Holocaust Museum in Israel. You know, I'm a big supporter of that museum, and they are doing lots of great online education. And this is a great educational video. I hope you'll take some time to watch that later today. And I posted the story about Cocina Azul, and I'm good to go. So with that, I think I'm going to get to just bring on our guest. It is 9:13, which is a perfect time to start telling you about Sean. He is truly, look at all these text messages I got. They're like, Sean Cardinalli, wow, that's amazing. Everybody's so impressed with you. All right, so here we go. I want to tell you a little bit about my friend Sean. He is truly an incredible individual who's worked in the film industry for over 20 years. He's done TV development, TV production. He's a screenwriter, a script analyst. His journey has been so amazing with his film projects and his TV projects. He's worked with incredible leaders in the sector. He is really phenomenal, bringing his California experience to New Mexico, his California credibility to help us build up a really robust New Mexico film sector that has been a bright spot on our balance sheet for New Mexico. He's worked with a whole cadre of Hollywood executives. He's been in front of lots of great folks that we all know and love, like Spike Lee and many, many others. He worked on the Blair Witch Film Project, Requiem for a Dream. He's just done so many great, I'd be here forever if I talked about all this. He's analyzed for Summit Entertainment, Walmart Media, New Market Films. He's completed over a dozen original screenplays. He's worked with The Terminator, Salvation, to Mr. Robot, 12 Strong. Sean's screenwriting he's really famed in New York to California, and he's just got a great reputation. And we're proud to have him and call him one of New Mexico's own sons. And I asked Sean And Sean, if I left anything out on your bio that you'd love to talk about, don't hesitate to bring that up as I bring you to camera.
All right.
But I want to just say that, one of the voices that has been in my ear as I've tried to become more informed, as we have now entered in a couple days, what is exactly 8 weeks from the murder of George Floyd, and almost 8 weeks of Cafecito con Colon amplifying Black voices. One of those people that has been in my ear is Sean. I've watched him in a very beautiful and public way kind of express his emotions, express his advocacy, trying to help better inform us about his lived experience and his journey as a biracial Black man in Albuquerque who looks through a lens that was developed in California, that was developed in a sector that has consistently, for the most part, marginalized diverse voices. And I want him to talk about that today and talk about how him being a part of that sector for nearly 2 decades, for more than 2 decades, what it has been like for him trying to amplify diverse voices and diverse talent and diverse scripts in a sector that really hasn't been all that welcoming, in a sector that has only since it was publicly shamed, and Sean, you can adjust me a bit, but from my perspective, a sector that really hasn't started moving forward until it was publicly shamed about how regressive it actually was in terms of having diversity at the top. And you've been a part of that for 20 years. And I think that we are so fortunate to have you as part of New Mexico and a part of New Mexico's film industry so that we can get it right here. And I think that's what I want to really be able to say about you. I value you for helping us get it right in New Mexico. And with that, I want to bring on somebody who I respect a great deal, somebody who was gracious enough to say yes, and I'm happy to be on your show. Welcome, Sean Cardinalli.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the time. And really, thank you for all you've done. I mean, this platform is amazing. You are doing the work that we're all discussing right now within and without the Black community, as far as building bridges, lending, a platform, this powerful platform to the local Black community. So thank you for that. I've been watching a lot of the shows. I told you before we got on today that I have to catch up. There's so many amazing guests you've had on. Really, I could spend a day or two just binging, all your shows. So thank you for that. You're really speaking the truth about Hollywood. I mean, Hollywood has for years fancied itself very liberal. I mean, arguably the pushback that we got from Governor Martinez's office when she was in the office up in Santa Fe, a lot of the pushback was just partisan as far as the tax rebate here, which is a powerful tool. And as far as the gains we were making, and if you remember, just a few years ago, it was sort of an 11th hour thing with Susana Martinez, where she flip-flopped at the last second and was like, oh, you're right. These rebates are good. Not only are they good, we're going to bump some situations up to 30% instead of the usual 25. And so whoever got in her ear, thank God they did, because the film can be powerful. It's a great way of getting our community involved. I have been arguing for a couple of years now, that I want to get more pipeline. And you mentioned that K through 12 or K through 8 article. I mean, we need a similar sort of pipelining system here in state for film and for TV. I don't want to see any more brain drain. I don't want to see our young people of color. I don't want to see, working class poor white kids leaving the state to try to find their opportunities elsewhere when we have this gold mine. I really do think that the film and TV business here is a gold mine we're just sitting on, Brian, and a lot of good people are doing a lot of good work. I just think that it can be even more focused. And granted, COVID has changed everything, needless to say. But as soon as as soon as we can get in those meetings again with the mayor, as soon as we can speak more with Amber Dodson up at the state level now, I think she's up in Santa Fe, not here. Yep. New Albuquerque film liaison coming in. Those roles are important to, get the word out, and not only get the word out, but be proactive about inviting our high school graduates, our college graduates, really coordinating UNM, CNM down in a state down in Las Cruces, and really sort of pivoting, you said pivot earlier, to pivoting to these specific demographics of young folks, and invite them in and let them know they have a place, and it's not just all above the line. It's not just the creative stuff, the directors, the producers, the writers, the actors. That's great. That's glamorous. It's all a lot of hard work. But also, we need the accountants, the electricians, the lighting crew, all kinds of assistants in the production office. That's where I've been working mainly. People don't realize what an amazing learning opportunity it is, as well as an amazing job opportunity. Each of these projects is a temporary, short-lived LLC. So you are part of a process, not only the creative process, but you're part of a process where you're joining a company that is like a startup. It explodes and expands, everyone gets hired, and then you go through the entire pre-production shooting process, and then you wrap it all up and call it a day and make sure you've crossed your T's and dotted your I's as far as the rebates and all the financial matters. And then you move on to the next show. And it's a powerful learning experience. And I really would encourage our state and city leaders to really tap into the young people we have in the community and invite them in very proactively.
I think that's a great message. And I just want to emphasize that we are finally at this point, as we sit here now, pre-COVID-19, we finally hit kind of the benchmarks where we were prior to the decimation of the industry. I will tell you that this is where politics really mattered and was palpable in outcomes. Because as you may recall, Sean, I ran for lieutenant governor with Diane Dennis as my running mate back in 2010. And on that campaign trail, I advocated for the tax credits and for the film industry, and our opponents, Susana and John, Governor Martinez and Lieutenant Governor Sanchez, ultimately, they campaigned very heavily against us on that very point because it was their predecessor's idea, because it was Bill's idea, and in terms of really ramping up that sector, I think they automatically believed that it had to be a bad idea. Maybe I'm exaggerating slightly. But on the campaign trail, that's kind of how the rhetoric ended up. And so what was interesting and fascinating in terms of reconstructing or evaluating the way history goes, when you look back, once they got into office, they started realizing, holy cow, this is actually a very, very bright spot on our economic balance sheet. The challenge is that for a year on the campaign trail, and then as it looked evident that they were going to win, other states started to say, look, if New Mexico is going to start messing with that tax credit, come to us. The weirdest states, you would know them better than I, but just kind of oddball states like where were they? They're just
Georgia, Louisiana, I think Utah even had a rebate system at some point, and I think they've just ended it. I don't know why. One of the Carolinas, and I apologize, I always forget which Carolina it is.
I couldn't remember either.
And there's on too. What I like to say, and someone maybe in the thread on Facebook can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I observed was that we were, the tip of the spear for years. And then when we retracted a bit, sort of right before Breaking Bad and a couple other projects really exploded, and you could see, what that was doing for the economy. And for morale, my goodness, for community morale. I think what happened, unfortunately, is that little pause is what sort of spurred on, exactly like you're saying, the other states. So Georgia, has done a tremendous job. Georgia is building. They have Pinewood Studios, which is international, was out in London or out in England, and now they have their own version of that. So it's this huge campus. They have Tyler Perry's. Again, it's like a Disney World right there outside of Atlanta. He took over a former Army base, I think, some kind of a military base. And not only that, they are now building an entire sort of suburb to house the the influx of workers who come in. So whether they're locals or whether they're temporary, if they're brought in from LA or brought in from New York, there will be this sort of housing community, sort of self-contained community where they can build and thrive and all work together. It's almost like an Olympic Village kind of thing. And I swear, maybe I am too starry-eyed, but I really think that that's something that Albuquerque and the entire state can push toward, where it's just this really fully functional industry. It is.
Sean, don't lose those starry eyes. We want you to keep those starry eyes. We need that in New Mexico. We need that optimism. We need you to continue leaning in and falling forward and advocating, not just for the sector, but where I think you've been beautiful is advocating for increasing access to the sector for people of color and for scripts that reflect the ability to tell the story of people of color. And I think that that's where I'm so fascinated with your journey. And I'm hoping we could kind of start on that and maybe talk a little bit about your journey from California to New Mexico, growing up as a biracial man who is extremely, at least from the outside looking in, Sean, extremely and beautifully connected with your African-American roots, whether it's me listening to you doing readings online, which I highly valued on 4th of July, or whether it's even, I think I found one of you, I think back in 2011, doing a reading regarding the Emancipation Proclamation. You're just long before this kind of 2-month beautiful collection of voices saying enough is enough. Long before that, you were this voice out there that was really being a tremendous advocate for telling the story. And so maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that, Sean.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I think being as fair as I am, and also as passionate as I am about my African-American heritage, I have been a fly on the wall in so many circumstances in Hollywood. And so, I wish I had a dime for every time I heard something completely off color or outright racist. I wish I had written down or documented, from 21 when I first landed in Los Angeles to, I've been here 15 years. So mid 30s when I got here, and I came actually specifically for the industry, which I'll get to. But, again, I was saying earlier, Hollywood fancies itself progressive, but I mean, like anything, there's going to be variations on that. It's variable. Every time 20 years ago in the 90s, when the indie film business was exploding, when it was the heyday of Miramax and New Line, and you were getting the Kevin Smiths and the Tarantinos, and it was this really interesting push. Christine Vachon, you were getting women's stories as well, and women producers and directors really coming up as well. That was very interesting, but it was also very white. And you remember the Oscar So White, push from just even less than a decade ago.
Right.
Every time you would bring up, let's tell this brown story, let's tell this black story, let's tell this Asian story, you would have a few here and there. There was, Milagros Beanfield War. There was Joy Luck Club, right? There were. I'm trying to think of like the rare. What was the one? Waiting to Exhale.
The Color Purple.
Color Purple, right? So you would have, it would be peppered here and there, but very seldom. And the pushback was always housed in sort of financial terms. Big surprise. It's Hollywood. You got to make money. But I would always hear, we can't sell that black story. We can't sell that story about civil rights, or we can't sell that black cowboy story, for example, in Germany. Or, there was always the excuse that, we would lose territories. And that is a consideration when you're an independent studio, which is where I was, Artisan Entertainment, which did the Blair Witch Project, which did Requiem for a Dream. So we were sort of at the cutting edge of the indie movement, the indie film movement. We were an independent studio, and yet you just heard the same responses, the same refrains every time. Like, we can't do that because X. And so what I've been thrilled with, and so many other people were thrilled with, is, I mean, predating even sort of predating or sort of coinciding with Black Lives Matter as a socio-political movement, the arts push at the same time, the film push, where you got big studios like Marvel in Georgia shooting Black Panther, or you have a Crazy Rich Asians. So now you're seeing where I don't know, unfortunately, I don't know the finances enough. I don't know the economics of it enough, but whatever it is, there's enough of a push given a particular story at a particular time with people that look a particular way. I think they're making fewer excuses and trying to hurdle whatever that barrier was for all those years. You know, now we can sell in China. Now we can sell in South America and Mexico. Now we can sell in Europe. And I don't know if that's a combination of factors. You know, it's sort of the willingness on the part of the execs, the creative execs and the studio heads, or if it's just forcing it into the territory, forcing it down the territory's throats and going, this is the content we have. It's worthwhile content. You need to exhibit it. You need to share these stories. You know, it's probably, I mean, it's always bottom line. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
And that's not cynical. That's real. But
Right.
But at the same time, I'm just glad that it's a lot more proactive now, because again, like I say, I sat in meeting after meeting after meeting with, you know, basically white male execs who just can't even fathom these alternate, and they're not alternate, they're ours, you know, these alternative storylines. And so I'm grateful that that conversation has opened up, along with Me Too and women's stories. You know, you now have BIPOC stories finally opening up, finally being recognized and actively being sought after. Who was it? CBS Viacom has a whole new push that they're doing, which matches Netflix and some of these other huge companies now, hugely popular, huge conglomerates that are now actively saying, we want Black stories, we want Indigenous stories, which is gigantic. I mean, again,
Well, and it's not just the stories, and Denise mentioning it here, and you mentioned it earlier in your opening remarks, I think, but, you know, I think the public, again, has said enough's enough in having actors and actresses transform themselves into a role that they have, you know, absolutely no connection to, whether it be the LGBTQ community or whether it be Native Americans or things of that nature, that we actually cast. We have always had and currently have enough talent out there to actually cast people in those roles who have a sense of what that lived experience is like, which would naturally make them more suited, and it's more appropriate for them to be playing those roles. Mm-hmm. And I think you've also been an advocate in that conversation.
Yep. No, I mean, for sure. I think we really, really have to reach out. Again, whether it's creatively, whether it's above the line, the creative component. You know, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, and a colleague in this push is James Lujan, who's the chair, one of the chairs at IAIA up at Santa Fe. And he's a Native brother, and he has this amazing story that I'm pushing through my company, Alterity, because again, these stories need told. These we need better representation on the screen, and so not only do you have the creative component, and you're telling the stories like how you just mentioned, but yes, then you also get the crew. You also hire the folks who, you know, deserve that shot and deserve to be part of that entire process, you know, and lend it some credence, some authenticity.
And they get to be the beneficiaries of the work product, right? Which then empowers and then increases the economic capacity of that particular group or that particular individual on that journey. And whether it's, you know, I think, didn't we just have another dust up last week or the week before regarding, I don't remember what A-lister was going to be cast as a transgendered woman.
Was it Halle Berry?
I think that's right. As a matter of fact, an African-American transgender role.
Right.
And the community, I mean, she backed down, I think within 24 hours or relatively quickly after that Twitter storm started, she backed out and said, look, this is tone deaf on the studio part and my part. I think I'm totally paraphrasing what she said, but she clearly stepped back. And what a beautiful time we're in, where social media can have that impact. Same thing with the awards, same thing with the producers. You know, how many people of color are producers in Hollywood? We're not having these kinds of conversations about boycotting the awards ceremony. You know, all these things. I mean, it is a powerful, powerful time to be alive.
And you know what? You're absolutely right. And what's amazing is, I'm glad you just said that, because for years I felt like Chicken Little, right? I mean, you feel like you just you got the megaphone and no one cares, right? And then the
You're like,
last
is this microphone working? Hello, hello.
and I had the sincere pleasure of being on a Netflix show right before we all got shut down for COVID. And it was very proactive. My good friend, Rebecca Stair, who we call Puck, who's—
Hey, Puck, are you online today? You know, Puck was with me every morning for like a long time. I haven't seen her shout out this morning, but there's a good chance she's on. Go ahead. Sorry.
No disrespect to you, Brian, but she is one of the smartest people I know. I mean, just anytime you can bend her ear and swap some conversation with her, it is 100% worth it. She is so smart and has a huge heart. And so I was on the show up in Santa Fe with her Netflix show, and we were talking about how it was very specifically proactive with its hiring. So finally, it wasn't just it was below the line, but even heads of departments were Black or brown. Lots of women, lots of heads of departments were women filling the roles as well. And so I'm linking that to what I was just saying about feeling like Chicken Little for the last, almost 20 years, because you have to be proactive. In the 90s, there was such a terrible pushback against, say, affirmative action or whatever you want to call it, but call it parity, call it equity, just whatever you want to call it. It's necessary to get out of one's prescribed box and one's own lived experience and go, oh, hey, there's something more. There's something I haven't considered. So,
right.
So why can't I have 6 heads of department on a show shot in Santa Fe with Black cowboys, a Black director, Black producers, women of color, in costumes and, special effects and location. That's Rebecca's specialty. She's this amazing location manager. She may have been UPM'd a couple of things, but anyway, you have
to. What? She's on, Sean. She's on.
She's on. Okay, good. Hey.
She says she's blushing.
So I'm just saying, you just have to, it's just strange to me how there was so much pushback. It was such a threat to even, try to diversify, the board, the table I was sitting around at the independent studios. It just, if it wasn't a threat, it just wasn't even thought of. It just wasn't even conceived of, again, because folks had a narrow prescription of a narrow lens they were looking through. This is America.
That's exactly right. It was so well stated. And I want to point out something that speaking about expanding the lens or broadening the lens or zooming out so that we can stick with the film. Do you like that? Zooming out?
Yeah. Good. Perfect.
Thank you, Sean. No, but I wanted to point out a great comment that Senator Steinborn made out of Doña Ana County. Phenomenal multi-generation impact family down in Las Cruces. His dad was very, very kind to me for a long time, but he stops by quite frequently on Cafecito, and he points out something really important. My second home was down there in Las Cruces, lived there for a decade. That's where I, went to New Mexico State and started my businesses and things like that. He says one thing that is long overdue to grow the film industry in New Mexico is to bring a series to southern New Mexico. Las Cruces has a 75,000 square foot film studio ready to go. And the state now has a rural film incentive. It has a 5% bump there. So I know you probably know that, Sean, but I want to highlight that for our Cafecito listeners, because you just never know who's tuning in, especially when Sean Cardinalli is on as a guest, because I think you attract a different audience, and I appreciate that. I posted up your LinkedIn profile because I couldn't really find for your great work, especially we're talking about this diversity. For your great work, I couldn't find Alterity on. I couldn't find a website for that, and so
yeah, no. LinkedIn is fine. Alterity is still in the startup stages. I appreciate you even plugging it. So I'm going to continue that really quickly before we get back to the more important things. Like I actually want to address the rural component that you just mentioned and that you were just speaking of. Please. But alterity means otherness. So the idea of this production company of mine is to tell James Lujan stories, is to tell LGBTQ stories, is to bring more Black voices, women's voices to the fore, precisely because, well, it's the right thing to do, but also because I really want to take advantage of this moment. I started the company a year ago. I won't break my arm patting myself on the back, but it was a little prescient because a year ago I just thought, well, I'm doing a lot of this production work. We are an amazingly tight-knit community. We have our little pods and things where we all work show to show, but the community is just, in general, so positive, and we have each other's backs that I thought, let me bring an above the line component, a development and production component to it, as opposed to the physical production, like the actual, on the boots, on the ground, shooting the projects. And let me
real quick for our viewers that are not in the sector and not familiar with budgeting and kind of the above the line, below the line discussion. Can you give a quick 30-second of what you mean when you talk about that production?
Sure. The line is literally on the budget sheet, where anything above the line is more your creative aspects. It's the money that's included in the budget for the director, the producers, the actors, the studio end. Below the line is what we really excel in here, which is 90% of the rest of the entire company, which is again, your electricians, your accountants, your art department. So the rest of the crew is all the below the line. All of our budgets, how we are paid, is in the below the line. Those are below the line capacity. Those are below the line roles. So I guess at some point there was a literal line on a budget sheet, and that's where they got.
That's right.
So.
That's right.
So again, below the line is Thrive, and it's why we came out here. When and I'll try to keep all my trains of thought going, but Camilla, my ex-wife, Camilla Dominguez, Latina businesswoman, amazing entrepreneur. I got to plug her too. She has a company,
yes,
like Corazon Events, and
that's how I had the good fortune of first meeting you.
Right through the campaign and everything. And so we had a baby on the way back in 2006. Friends of hers were saying, her family goes back 400 years here, and well, my entire family's out in California, and they were saying, well, we know how expensive it is in LA. You've got a baby on the way. I'm sweating blood to just pay rent and everything, right in the heart of LA. And they said, well, the movie business is exploding out in New Mexico. Why don't you check it out? Richardson's doing all these amazing things. I guess it really started with Cargo, but Richardson really started getting it going and really activating it. And Breaking Bad was out there. It's funny, but it was like the first season, or it was just barely being shot. So we thought, well, why not? The cost of living out here is amazing. That's another thing. I want to do, again, what Georgia and Louisiana is doing. It's like, come on, just let's make this community even bigger. Bring them in, bring more folks of color, and all kinds of communities into New Mexico. We have the infrastructure, we have the space, and we definitely have the drive and the creativity. So we came out here exactly for that reason, with Ann Lerner, the then Albuquerque liaison, who really, I see her as like the fairy godmother of, tens, if not hundreds of us. I mean, she literally got me my first job out here when I kept applying and didn't know anybody yet, right? I didn't have the inroads yet. She literally sent me to 3 or 4 different sets, and that's how I got my first job out here. And so back to Alterity, the whole point is to do exactly that kind of thing. Bring people in, pipeline folks, invite folks in to be a part of this incredibly, I think the potential in these endeavors, these film and TV endeavors, is just amazing.
So in that otherness, not to interrupt, I'm sorry, Sean, I think you're right about potential when we talk about the otherness, which is Alterity, but will you commit to reach out to the good senator down there in Doña Ana County, Senator Steinborn? And
I absolutely.
And you all should have open dialogue and lines of communication, he's done a great job promoting it. They've got a great film liaison down there in Las Cruces. I was just there yesterday, and doing some work for the office, but not in the film sector, but some other work for the office. But I really think you and Jeff should make sure you have open lines of communication. Make that happen.
I appreciate that. Thank you for putting that bug in my ear and being very proactive in that. It's something, actually, Rebecca and I were just talking last night. Rebecca Stera again and I were just talking last night about precisely that. It's kind of a blind spot. If I have to admit a little bit of weakness, it is how and she has educated me on this. There is a little bit of a blind spot as far as what can we do for the rural communities, as opposed to just concentrating everything here in Albuquerque and Santa Fe, the two main campuses, basically hotspots for the shooting. I was on something with a good friend of mine, Haley Trujillo, exactly a year ago, last July. The project we were on folded, unfortunately, but we were down in Roswell. So we were housed, we took over a whole hotel there. We were dealing with their film liaisoning. It was just a single person office. And again, they have, I think, not only a community college campus, but I think also, is there a half open or half filled military base down there? But they were proponents of utilizing that space. And again, just like in Doña Ana down in Las Cruces and in Roswell and these other outlying cities and communities, for sure, let's put up a studio. And again, let's do you're going to get sick of hearing pipelining, but that's what you do. You invite the community in, you invite the sons and daughters of the parents who are like, maybe a little skeptical, maybe they were thinking Martinez was right when this doesn't actually affect, our economy or our bottom line, but it does. The restaurants, the hotels, all the Lowe's and the hardware stores, the mom and pop shops, the what we call expendables, right? I mean, you're blowing through paper products and plastics and tools and all this equipment. And even right now, there are only a couple, say, expendables companies locally here. I mean, you could have 5 more and still do fine. And then that would allow you to invite even more films and more TV shows to film. We have literally, Brian, at some point in my last 4-year run in physical production, there have been a couple of times where literally shows were on the fence because there wasn't enough room. We have I-25 studios, we have Netflix studios, we have Santa Fe, Camel Rock. I want to plug Camel Rock. That's the new studio up in Tesuque. It had just opened when COVID shut the world down, but I definitely want to promote them. I've spoken to the executives there. That is run by the Pueblo, and even though it is on native land, there are workarounds as far as the rebate. You can still work through that process and take advantage of the rebate. So again, the potential here is amazing. I personally think we could literally have 3 more sound stages, 3 more studio lots, and be fine.
Well, let's think about how we can make that happen, particularly in rural New Mexico. Like you mentioned, we've got some great history of filming in Las Vegas, New Mexico, Condado, San Miguel, and let's get some work down there to Las Cruces. I guess folks can fly into El Paso International Airport. It's a quick 45 minutes, depending on how fast you drive to Las Cruces from there. And Senator Steinborn's got great vision. So I'll look forward to connecting the two of you. And I appreciate you talking about the capacity to grow and to continue to zoom out and see a broader landscape in New Mexico and even more success in our future in that sector. And I will just close with this, and I want to kind of move and turn the page to a little bit more personal perspective that you and I talked about before coming to camera, but I want to close with on this film sector. One of the things I talked about on the campaign trail back in 2010, which I'm thankful that Governor Martinez and Lieutenant Governor Sanchez really did have the courage to say, we got it wrong, and really adjusted their sights and really realized that the film sector was deeply, deeply important. It caused us a 6-year bump in the road, in my opinion. And you can see that economically, how long it took for us to come back. But at least they adjusted, and I want to give them credit for that. But one of the things I always said on the campaign trail was that it's not just what's on the balance sheet. In New Mexico, we do such a good job of being humble, that we are almost, we don't even see our self-value and our worth sometimes. And I just think that the film sector in New Mexico has got that unintended consequence and that intrinsic value of us being able to look up on the big screen and seeing how beautiful New Mexico is. I think that is priceless.
Mm-hmm.
It's priceless to be able to look up and see the sandias on a shot and be able to say, this is my home.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my hair standing up, because I just think that it starts with humility, but I think at some point we beat ourselves down in terms of our self-worth on occasion. And I just think the film sector helps us with that source of pride that really you can't put a price tag on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just appreciate you being a part of that.
Well, thank you. And you're right. I mean, the community here has always been so welcoming, you know, since we landed, and in general, very kind and open-minded folks out here. And if anyone is still, you know, skeptical, you know, I advise them to do what you said, you know, look at the TV shows, look at the movies. When the credits roll, you know, you see, oh, there's Hito, there's my cousin, there's my friend. It's, you know, there's my friend from high school, whatever. I mean, it's a big deal. It is
because there's Patricia L. Chavez. There's Patricia L. Chavez. There she is on the big screen.
Right.
And, you know, even my son got in on, I think he ended up on the cutting room floor, and he had to stand outside under shade trees for far too long to ever want to go back and be in a film again. But even my son got in on, I think that was probably 15 years ago. It was right when the sector was starting. But yeah, so thank you for being a part of that. Let's spend the last 10 minutes. I really want to get a chance to ask you to kind of share with us your lived experience, specifically as it relates to maybe your faith and the biracial lens that you look through, and your experience during this Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, I know you know, I have a men's group that I host every week, Thursday mornings at 6 a.m. You know, anywhere from 20 to 40 guys get together, St. Therese Parish. We do it by Zoom every week now, to try and be the best versions of ourselves we were created to be. But I also know you're deeply engaged in the African-American Catholic community. I want you to maybe help us kind of figure out, what are those passion points for you? How does that dovetail with the Black Lives Matter movement? And really the voice you've been out there, that everybody's been hearing, at least that follows you, which I do.
Well, thank you for pivoting to that. The African-American Catholic community is, you talked about the hair raising on your arm, talking about film and community just a minute ago. I mean, I have such amazing respect and love for the group. They are my elders. They are a wise group of folks whose experience, I mean, I just sit and soak it in. So the African-American Catholic community of the Archdiocese of Santa Fe was founded in 1992 by Brenda Dabney, Stephen Woodbury, and a number of other local Black Catholics who realized that they needed a liturgical and, you know, religious, prayerful outlet for their particular Catholicism. You know, and Catholic means universal. There's nothing, you know, separatist or anything like that about it. And we actually had a vigil right after George Floyd was murdered. On the 3rd, we were over at St. Joseph on the Rio Grande with the full blessing and encouragement of Archbishop Wester, who was incredibly progressive. We are so happy to work with him, and just he keeps encouraging us, and vice versa. His ears are open to hearing what, you know, we need and need to express, and how we move forward in this Black Lives Matter movement together. And at the same, you know, he listens to us, and at the same time, he encourages us to keep putting our voice out there. So the community was formed in 1992. We have 5 masses every year. I can't give you all the dates, but I know we started every year with Martin Luther King Mass, because for a while, I guess the church was a little split. There would be one in Santa Fe and one down here by the AACC. And I think I can't remember if that's reconciled now, if it's just one big mass. But I do have to share with you. You think it is?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Go ahead though.
I do have to share with you that it was providential meeting the group, because like I said, everyone here when I first moved out in '06 was welcoming. But I have to tell you, being raised in the Bay Area, mixed or not, I mean, Oakland, Berkeley, San Francisco, Stockton, these are very diverse cities I was raised in. And New Mexico prides itself on diversity, but we also know that there's a prevailing, tricultural tone to that, which then tends to exclude Black New Mexicans or exclude Asian New Mexicans or, other folks who aren't brown native or, Latino native or white. So when I came out here, that was a little startling. I was like, well, it is diverse, but it's not, I don't know what you want to call it, as cosmopolitan or as diverse as I'm used to. So I was very proactive, just like I sought out the film community. I was very proactive seeking out my Black folks, the Black community, and providentially was driving down late for Mass at Holy Rosary, which is my parish. And it's from where the kids live, where Camilla and my kids live with her. It was so far away, we were going to be late, and I hate being late. So we're driving down Coors, and I said, "Oh, St. Joseph's is right here." I'm having my son, my Hito, like Google, where's the closest church? And we hooked a right into St. Joseph's. We got in a little bit late. It's the age.
So Sean, you know about masstimes.org too, right?
I need to put it on my phone. I better put it on my phone and just help me out to better get there on time. I can't.
Go ahead. Good.
So we turned into St. Joseph's, and it was Brenda Dabney and Miss Louise Davis and Brother Gordon and celebrating in an African American cultural style with the gospel music and drums and the liturgy was just amazing, and I was stunned. We had no idea that we were just going to bump into them that day, and so I immediately walked up to some of the steering committee folks, Brenda and everybody afterward, and was like, how can I be a part of this? And I'm proud of what we've done. We're not as visible as, God's House. We're not as visible and out there as Bishop Cooper and these wonderful Black church communities out here. And we are working on that. I can admit that we are being proactive. We want to get more ecumenical, so we do have plans in this Black Lives Matter movement in this huge wave now. Thank God the wave is cresting after, sort of years of just sort of bubbling and building slowly. We are being proactive. We're going to try to have, like I say, ecumenical town hall meetings. We're going to reach out to other churches. We had the vigil, like I said, for George Floyd on June 3rd. That was like within, 48, 72 hours of him being killed. Brenda and the Archbishop spoke, and that was up online. That's up on our website on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and we have thank God, we have either a millennial or a Gen Zer who's now, helming that to really get us out there as far as social media. And we're also writing a letter. We're addressing, say, this, little mini controversy with counselors Trudy Jones and Cynthia Borrego, because we, like most folks, hearing that exchange about the One Albuquerque $1 million African-American fund, were appalled. It was really diminishing. It was really infantilizing to hear what they had to say about the Black community as pertains to that fund. And so we have our own letter we'll be sending, CCing the entire council and the mayor. So we are jumping into the conversation. If we have been perceived as quiet, the last few years, we take responsibility for that. And I've been actively, been a part of that, raising our profile and being a part of the conversation that you're having with this show, that Kathy McGill is having with, New Mexico Black Leadership Council, that Patrick Barrett, with Sankofa and all of his groups, the same conversation that has to keep going. This is not a short quip. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm really encouraged by all of these different community sectors, whether it's film and artistic, whether it's the church, whether it's civic. I've been out to Charles Ashley's quiet protest. I've also was out at the big protest with both my kids, both my hitos, who are half New Mexican, out there that first weekend after, I think who's the group that had that first vigil, the Peace and Justice office or group.
Right
Community.
over on Carlisle, right?
Yeah. Yes. I don't know if it's Carlisle or by the campus. But
Oh, yeah, no, you're right. It's by the campus. I'm sorry. You're talking about the one on that east-west street. That's got a great mural on the side. We do food
yes,
distribution there
yes,
sometimes. You
them.
must go Center for Peace and Justice.
Injustice, yeah. So
Yeah.
we've been out there, and I'm encouraged by all that Albuquerque and that the greater New Mexican community can come together in this very important time. And so hopefully, like where I started was hopefully the AACC. I welcome any church leader who's on, or any church attendee who's on right now who's not Catholic, or if they're Catholic. We have to. Catholic means universal. So we need these other parishes. We are encouraging these other parishes to speak up. What does Queen of Heaven have to say? What does Holy Rosary have to say? The Norbertines. I love those men down in the South Valley. Catholics need to speak up. There's a great website if you want to put it on your thread. It's nbccongress.org. And that's the National Black Catholic Congress. We get together every 5 years. There's a wealth of articles about this, what Catholics call the sin of racism in their terms, in our terms, and social justice. There's a tribute to John Lewis. I'm looking at the page right now. There's, we are part of this conversation with other churches, with other religious, and with other civic bodies. We have to be. It's all hands on deck. So
I love that. Well, we've talked a lot about I've talked a lot about my hope that this is not just a flashpoint, but instead a tipping point. Mm-hmm. And the good news is it appears to be just that, a real tipping point. And that's only going to be true if people like you continue to push through the exhaustion, push through the difficult dialogues, and continue to help everybody know better so that we can be better and do better. And I just appreciate you always doing that. And I posted that link there. I tell people I'm a walking ecumenical poster boy. I'm the only Jew in the country that has a Roman Catholic men's group every Thursday morning at 6 a.m.
Right.
When Archbishop Wester got here, I told him I was that guy. And he said, "What do you mean that guy?" And I said, "I'm that guy in your diocese who's Jewish and has a Roman Catholic men's group in your diocese." And so he said, "Oh, you're that guy." So yeah, that's me. I always say that I support whatever gives my wife the strength to deal with me on a daily basis. It happens to be her Catholic faith, and she's devout, and I wasn't an observant Jew, and so I go to mass every Sunday pre-COVID, and really have been enriched by being surrounded with men who are faithful to their values and to their faith, and just committed to being the best versions of themselves they were created to be. And I appreciate you inspiring others to do the same.
Thank you for having me. And I want to give you a direct invitation. I will send the schedule. Of course, we're waiting on 2021. We canceled all of our masses this year. By April, we knew that 2020 was just untenable to try to plan. So I will specifically give you an invitation. I invite everybody to come by. I invite all Catholics. I invite, non-Catholic, everybody, every color,
awesome.
Everybody, come by and, take part in the cultural experience and the religious experience.
Well, Sean, you've been an amazing, amazing guest this morning on Cafecito con Colon. I'm grateful. I've talked a lot. And so is there anything that I can give you a chance to share as we wrap up today's edition of Cafecito con Colon on this 21st day of July, the beautiful year of 2020?
No, I thank you very much for the opportunity, and want to keep encouraging folks to stay healthy, keep having the conversations like you're having here online, with each other. I had, when you and I were speaking last night, I had 5 other calls just to hear people. It's a lot of stress between COVID and Black Lives and everything going on, having having the stress of the administration, snatch people off the streets. I mean, there is so much input. It's a lot. So if we just take the time to listen to one another, hear one another, make calls to friends you haven't, heard of in a while, see how they're doing, family as well, we can get through pretty much anything together.
I couldn't say it any better. Thank you, Sean Cardinalli, for being our guest today on Cafecito con Colon. Reach out to those in isolation and remind them that they're not alone. Tell them that Brian Colon sends his love. The folks from Cafecito con Colon are with them and they're here for them. God bless each and every one of you. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for another great episode of Cafecito con Colon, where we are amplifying Black voices. Thank you, Sean, for allowing us to amplify yours. Have a great day.
Thank you too.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.